Hello and welcome to this special on the print. Now, a lot has been happening between India and Maldives. Of course, you would have seen the interviews done by by the team here, or the diplomacy team, with various people with voices coming in from Maldives and others. But today we're having a special discussion, and why I call it special is because we're trying to bring multiple voices in this whole issue at the same time. And I have with me the former Maldivian defense minister. He's Tholath Ibrahim, and he was the defense minister during President Nasheed's term during 2011 and 2012. I have also with me Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, who is the former DGMO, that is Director General of Military Operations. And he also has a Maldives connection because he was one of those paratroopers who actually went down to Maldives in 1988 when the whole coup against Gayoom had taken place. So he was a person who was has been closely associated with Maldives. I also have with me Captain D.K. Sharma. Captain D.K. Sharma is the former spokesperson of the Indian Navy, somebody who closely tracks the maritime commerce, the maritime news developments in not just in the Indian Ocean, but also around the world. And last but not the least, I have my colleague, Pia Krishnankutty. She covers the MEA for us and is someone who closely tracks news developments when it comes to foreign affairs, and Maldives is one of our core area. So thank you so much for joining here at the discussion at the print. Pia, my first question to you. What is the latest when it comes to India Maldives?
Well, you must have seen the latest developments last week, but a lot more has happened over the weekend. The Maldivian government has given India March 15th as the deadline by which it needs to withdraw troops on the island country. Yesterday, we saw External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar respond to remarks that, in fact, the Maldivian president, Muzu, had said upon his return from China, which was his first state visit. Now, upon his return, he had mentioned that we are a country that cannot be bullied. And yesterday, at a town hall in Nagpur, the Indian foreign minister said politics is politics, and we cannot expect every country and all the people in every country to be in support of India.
Well, that is true. Politics is politics. But you mentioned about this deadline. But does this deadline really come as a surprise for you? Because the president's entire political campaign was based on anti-India rhetoric. Go India, go back India. So does this deadline come as a surprise to you?
Well, analysts have said that this is not much of a surprise, especially because the campaign you refer to, the India Out campaign, which Muzu had been establishing and pushing for during his campaign trail, was actually inherited by a previous Maldivian president, also viewed as pro-China, which is Abdullah Yameen. And it was under him that he inherited this foreign policy slide. And as far as analysts have said, it's that Muzu's links to China, even when he was housing and infrastructure minister under Yameen's government, is very telling. And we've written extensively on that at the print, for which I'm sure we can include links in the description of this video. So no, it does not seem to be surprising, especially because apart from this troop withdrawal issue, the Muzu government does not seem to be keen on renewing an agreement that had allowed India to conduct hydrographic surveys in Maldivian waters.
Exactly. So, Mr. Ibrahim, when you look at this India-Maldives ties, where it stands right now, it pains us to see where the state of affairs that is right now. The fact is that India and Maldives have had much closer relationship in the past. Forget the military aspect, forget the diplomacy aspect, but even when it comes to people ties, for example, a lot of Maldivians come down to India for their medical treatment. So we have been two countries who have been very close. So how do you see these news developments that are taking place now, sir?
Well, I think a lot of politics is involved in that. Well, there is a feeling in Maldives, the presence of Indian military here is a very contentious issue, because people, I mean, we always feel, we feel our sovereignty and we feel that we have been always like that, so a presence here, especially, military footing, is not seen as a very positive publicly, so it's not seen as very good. The relation between India and Maldives is always good. But when it comes to that, keeping military presence here, which actually I don't think India needs to do this really, because it has a very good navy and it can really, patrol the whole Indian Ocean without a presence in Maldives, here. So it is a strain, and the public opinion is pushing it to these parties, actually. So there is a split in that. One of the group, some of the people won't clear off any military presence in Maldives. So that's it. But the relation between India, people to people, is very good. And we are also contributing over 200 million, every year by our medical, Asanda, program. And a lot of our people go to India for medical treatment and all that. Also, all the medicines are bought from India. That's over 700 million, So it goes on like that. So I think we, even a small nation, contribute to Indian economy in many ways. That, really. And
but I get your point, sir. I get your point. I get your point, sir. But when I'm looking at India-Maldives ties, I'm not bringing in the business aspect at all. For example, the other one could always turn back and say that Indians are the biggest contributor when it comes to tourism in Maldives, as per the figures released by the own Maldivian government.
That is very recent.
Yeah, that is very recent, right? So, but I'm not getting into the business aspect of it, the money aspect of it. But yes, as you mentioned, the people-to-people ties. Interesting that you mentioned the fact that Indian presence in military presence, you talk about the Indian military presence in Maldives. And for this, I like to bring Captain DK Sharma into this debate. Captain, he used the word, the military presence. They are not combat troops. For the viewers at large, if you could explain what is this military presence that the Maldivians are talking about?
Thanks, Snehesh. Let's be very clear that, first of all, this word troops, which relates to olive green army. There is no army there. Number two, that whatever assets Indian Navy has positioned over there, they are for the Maldivians. If you recollect, there are 2 ALH helicopters which are doing inter-island ferry, transporting primarily the medical cases which need immediate attention. So inter-island ferry is done by the Indian Navy Coast Guard pilots and the supporting staff. So whether you call it supporting crew, supporting staff, they are very minimal with 3 assets over there. And then you have the fixed wing Dornier, which flies them from Malé to mainland India, whether it is Trivandrum or whether it is Kochi. So actually speaking, this is a very, very benign and a noble cause which is being done at the behest of Indian government towards the goodwill of Maldivians, where we are only using this military assets for medical help and emergencies. If you see it, otherwise, the patrolling of your waters of Maldives is being done by the ships which have no business, and they don't go there. They don't go there. We are saving you from gun running. We are keeping an eye. Okay, I will not say saving you.
Saving is not the right term, because we're the net security provider when it comes to Maldives.
No. Yeah. We are just keeping an eye so that there is no gun running, no drug running, no human trafficking. And it is rampant in this part of the world. We have piracy now, showing its head in the Indian Ocean region, in the Western Arabian Sea, and you are sitting astride those sea lanes of communications. So if you say that we are, the troops have to be withdrawn, fine. If that be the case, if that is the will of the Maldivians, but how are you going to address the problem of these medical emergencies? The nearest help, and your people have, been visiting, there has been never a problem on this. Suddenly this is coming up because it was an agenda for the elections. Your president has gone to China and come back, charged up. but is it really going to take us anywhere? I have my doubts about it till the time you don't have the infrastructure, which he has now signed. The president signed more than 20 MOUs with the Chinese government authorities, and probably one of them is a big multi-speciality hospital. But it will take time. The doctors, the paramedics.
I think
Well, that's a very pertinent point that you brought out, Captain DK Sharma. Before I go to Mr. Ibrahim, I'd like to go to Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia. Now, Captain DK Sharma has brought out this element of the Chinese angle to it. You've been the Director General of Military Operations. You followed the China's policies, China's military maneuvering as well as diplomatic maneuvering. How much do you think this is based on China? And is Maldives becoming a pawn in the larger scheme of things that China has, sir?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think China is not becoming a pawn, it's a client state of China. Maldives become a client state of China. Captain Dikishan brought it very well. It is the assets, what we call the military assets, are very minimal. And these are not strategic interests of India. These are mutual interests of Maldives and India, and they were positioned thereafter MOU. But if they want them out, there's a way of doing things. You don't go public over it, don't get election issue. And I do feel that it has been done at the behest of China. It is China's containment policy of India, which is it's a three strategies of China. The three strategies are debt trap, which Sri Lanka suffered early. Pakistan is doing it right now, and it's very common in most of the countries. And we've seen what's happened to the countries who come with the debt trap. Second is bold diplomacy, and third is military coercion. So military coercion, China tried along the LAC with India. Debt trap, what it's done to Maldives, or it will do to Maldives, it's done to Sri Lanka, it's done to Pakistan. And even Pakistan is repenting this, actually, if you look at the CPEC.
Absolutely.
And nothing comes. China uses smart power, and these are three strategies of smart power of China. So Maldives actually becoming a client state of China if it moves down to China. It is not that China is looking at the long term. It is looking at creating harbor facilities there, birthing, its warships out there in Maldives, which India has never. India has a record, the Indian military has a record. Wherever we have gone in aid of our neighbors, we've always come out. We in Nepal in 1952, Bangladesh, East Pakistan 1971, Sri Lanka 87 to 88, 89. Maldives, I was there very much for the rescue of when the coup was there on 3rd of November 1988, and we came out. We stayed there for 1 year at the behest, at the invitation of the Maldivian government. Right? It is never in India's interest. We don't have the expansionist, programs and the agendas. We don't have that. We are very, confined to the strategic interests of the region rather, and that is Sagar, which is securing growth all in the region. So it is the big game of China, and it is the Maldivian people will suffer because it is medical, it's also education. The cultural linkages. The Chinese doctors can come and establish hospital with the hospital already. The India Maldivian Friendship Hospital is there, the Indira Gandhi Hospital is there. When in 2004 tsunami happened, India was the first to go in and aid Maldives. When 2014 the water need was there, when the desalination plant went off need.
Yeah.
India. So it is not only looking at the military aspects. We are the immediate neighbors, and we can help each other, and that is what it is. My issue is the way it is being played out in Maldives as an anti-India sentiment, which is got a long-term impact, right? So it is not correct because people to people are still friendly. People to people need each other. We have cultural linkages. We have ancestral linkages, language linkages. Actually, if you look at it, more comfortably. What you're studying in India, it's not medical education also. Imagine them going to China studying Chinese, it's not going to work out. And the way it's being done, that is the key issue strategically. It is a strategic competition between India and China, and Maldives is going to become a client state of China. So it is better for Maldives to realize that. And of course, tourism industry is a big industry. It's the only industry. I remember on the 4th of November, after we did rescue the President Gayoom, the first thing he said, I want the flights to land and the tourism to continue.
Exactly.
The 4th of November, the first flight landed on the 4th of November evening. Right. So that was what the government of Maldives wanted. That's exactly what we did. So they're totally, and biggest tourism comes from India. So I think Maldives is going to get, in a rapport. I find Indian sentiment also now turning anti-Maldives, which should not happen actually. People who will contact us there. So China is the player. China's containment policy, call it string of pearls, whatever you call it, is being affected from the west or southwest from Maldives.
Well, Mr. Ibrahim, the fact that General Bhatia brought this out together, the fact that, Maldives is increasingly becoming a China's client state. Now, he also mentioned about the fact that politics. I agree that during elections, a lot of sloganeering is done, a lot of issues are picked up. But when you come into power, then the real governance really kicks in. And I would agree with General Bhatia if the Maldivian government wants, the Indian Navy personnel, I would not call military personnel, the Navy personnel to be out. They are the Maldives is a free country. They are absolutely fit to decide what needs to be done. But do you think it could have been handled in a much better way?
Yeah, definitely could. It could have been better. Much better in a way. They could have handled that. The thing is, with the helicopter issue, the Maldivians can actually do it, and I think the agreement is to train Maldivian pilots and run it. That was the agreement, and I mean it's been more than 15 years now since the helicopter was brought here by the Indian government to Maldives, and then the understanding is that train Maldivian pilots and do it on our own. That is the idea. But it was kept on, with the Indian pilots and the attached support service and all that. And then it became a sort of a political issue, during President Yamin's time. But I think, on both sides, neither China nor India, we don't want to be, forced upon us, to be on each other's side, like going for the Chinese, favoring China, favoring India. It's not like that. Okay, it's very important since India is our close neighbor, and I mean, we have a long history between India and Maldives, and India has been always supportive of Maldives, and that has to be kept intact. And the rhetoric, I think, at this moment is. We don't need that, from the Indian politicians as well, I think. And,
I completely agree with you, sir, on this. The fact that the rhetoric need not be there, but the sad fact is that the rhetoric has not come from the Indian government at all. Yes, there were some Twitter users, who I would say trolls, who went, they say multiple things. For example, they say multiple things to me also, and to Pia and to General Bhatia also.
And sadly,
but then you have the ministers in the Maldivian government.
Well, one or two ministers commented on something which shouldn't have been. Which shouldn't have been. Okay, we also have the hawks in any government or in any political, environment. There are hawks as well who are very strong on certain issues. But I think in this issue with India and Maldives, it has to be amicable, and we have to solve it in a better way. Maldives will, if anybody is helping us to do something, we will, open our arms to that. China has been doing it, and then we will do it. And up until now, there isn't any, enforced, debt issue or any issue with the Maldives and China, neither India. So I think we are happy at where we are, but with the presence of some troops here, whether it's Coast Guard or the army or whoever it is a constant contentious issue with the Maldivian public. That's why some of the politicians have took it up and then used it. Okay, elections. In elections, people say things that shouldn't
Exactly.
be said. This happens everywhere, not only in Maldives. I mean, all these countries, all these elections,
In India,
they say things like that.
I'll give you that.
And then sometimes, after that, there is, things from the other side as well, and then some dialogues are, from each side, and this happens. I think President Moise is very sane in that. I mean, he will maintain with friendship with India. Definitely, he won't go overboard with anyone. Because he's very much a patriot, and then I think he's friendly with Indian government as well, and India as well as a country, and China as well. We are in the middle. I think both the countries want us to take a favorite from that. Sometimes this makes us a very difficult position. We are in this one because China want us to be them as favorites, and we only deal with them, perhaps. But that has not been said. Even the last government, Chinese has not said anything like that. In the FDP government, last government, when President Ibrahim was there, they were dealing with China as well at that time. There wasn't any issue with China, and India was very close at that time. And I think even now, President Moise, from the election campaign, they were saying that Indian troops has to go out, the helicopter troops has to go out, so it is. He has to say it now when he's been elected. He has to say that you have to take them back. I think this issue can be solved amicably. And we want to see strategic leadership from India to the region as a whole, because I think we are too small for India to react to, what our people say. Sometimes a junior minister might say things, to that, I don't think we should bring a big reaction to that. This will escalate to a problem rather than, solving it. So I think this has to be done in much better way than this. There is no issue between, I see it, there is no issue between India and Maldives. There is no issue.
Well, even I see that there is no issue between India and Maldives. And when you said that the president will be able to handle it, I hope he is able to handle it, because he's made some comments which, of course, will cause distress in several quarters in India. But Pia, coming back to you, he meant, how do you think the MEA has still not reacted very harshly, strongly, unlike the Maldivian president himself and his ministers? You talk to multiple people in the MEA. How do you see this panning out, Pia?
Well, first and foremost, as the gentlemen on this discussion have mentioned, there is a distinction that the MEA statements make about who these personnel are. In every statement, you will see that it mentions these personnel as there in Maldives, stationed for humanitarian needs of the Maldivian people, as opposed to all of the statements from Musu's government, which uses the word military personnel and troops. So that wording, that terminology is very important. And it's clearly a distinction that New Delhi has maintained since the beginning of this controversy. As far as your question on how has MEA been reacting sort of internally, we saw the statement from our Indian Foreign Minister yesterday. Politics is politics. That is a very diplomatic way to term this controversy. And as far as bullying goes, I think it sort of feeds into the larger geostrategic rivalry between India and China that we've been seeing all across our neighborhood. If you take Nepal, sure, the Bangladesh elections just happened, but Sheikh Hasina's government appeared between India and China. Sri Lanka also had, for many years, concerns of India being a big brother. So this could just be another example of that geostrategic rivalry playing out in our neighborhood. But I think following Musu's trip to China and the statements he made following the signing of 20 agreements, one of which is grant assistance of, I think, about 160 million USD.
Yeah.
Continue to take money from your largest creditor, then maybe you're picking a side in the geostrategic rivalry. But that is for analysts to further examine and dissect. And I'm sure they will be doing that in the weeks to come.
So, General Bhatia, when you look at Maldives statements, do you think, you've used a very strong word that Maldives has already become a client state? I would assume that going ahead, if this continues, then Maldives eventually will, is how I would put it. But where do you see this headed, sir?
Oh, I see this headed as China getting more space in Maldives, much more space. They're not doing it for, Chinese money comes at a great cost. It doesn't come free. It is they're not they use to sharp power. They look at the BRI, look at the nations. Even major countries have now said, no, we don't want the BRI. We don't want Chinese money. Look at Africa. Look at the South Asian context, the Southeast Asia. So it comes at great cost. And China doesn't do anything for free. They would like returns. Hammond Tota is already with them, actually. It's a 1998 lease. On the other hand, Gwadar got a 40-year lease. And mind you, Gwadar agreement was signed on the 14th of March 2013, and Xi Jinping became the president on 13th of March 2013. That within 24 hours signed the Gwadar agreement. So I'm just putting a context to it. So when Maldives and then there are other bases, now the complete restaurant becomes, it completes the whole thing. So I do feel that there are larger interests, strategic interests of China. For China, $160 million is not very big money, but for Maldives, with the interest,
it's pocket change.
It may become a problem. And that is where I think it is more important modus vivendi, right? The way it's being panned or played out. That is more important, actually. The optics is also important. We have to look at the optics. And that is where I feel that it has been, a head-on thing rather than done in a diplomatic way. And India has reacted well. Not Indians, sorry. India has reacted well. Indians have reacted the way Indians react. Okay, we've been hurt sentimentally, been hurt. Right, not that we expect any favor from Maldives or anything for that, but the way the ministers have, spoken against a prime minister of a country, the largest democracy in the world. So we are not taking it too kindly, actually, and rightly so. We are assertive India now. We are a risen India. We are a responsible India. But we'll still be responsible, and we'll be responsible for our neighbors. But the fact is that neighbors also have to realize that it's a give and take. You can't have it both ways. And space to China would be a problem for India. Also, strategic competition in the region is not good for India because we don't believe in a strategic competition. But where China is concerned, the string of pearls is very much a Chinese philosophy. And the debt trap is a Chinese philosophy, whether the Maldivians realize it today or not. But we'll all be here. Hopefully, we'll be here tomorrow also. We can discuss this. After some time, we discuss the same thing in Sri Lanka, we discuss the same thing in other nations also. So this is the Chinese strategy is very clear, actually. So the strategies don't change. Nation strategies don't change. The three strategies are very clear.
Yeah, come in, Pia.
During Musu's recent visit to China, he heaped a lot of praise on the BRI and even cited 2 projects in Maldives as in line with the BRI. That, of course, got the attention of many analysts here in Delhi and across India. Because it's basically an endorsement of China's mega infrastructure project through which it seeks to establish more influence in the region. And if you couple that with what Musu did as housing and infrastructure minister from 2012 to 2018, I think, and the kind of Chinese projects that he pushed through, like the Sinamale Bridge, those are as well.
Well, you're right, Pia. Thank you for bringing that out. Last voice to you, Mr. Ibrahim. Now, you've mentioned that this could have been handled in a different way. I think in a more diplomatic, in a more mature way is what, as adults, it was like, it could have been handled in a more adult way is how I would put it. But given ahead, you believe that your president currently is doing a good act. You believe that he's trying to keep a balance, whereas I believe, and rest of the speakers here also believe, and also many in the world would believe that Maldives is taking a very clear shift and tilt towards China. It is making it absolutely clear who it wants to be. But going ahead, sir, how do you see this India-Maldives ties? And as General Bhatia said, Indians may have reacted out of hurt, but India as a country, and I mean India as in the government, has reacted in a very mature way when it comes to this issue, sir. But how do you see it?
I agree with you. India should act, with the strategic leadership, and in a mature way, it should, really, because it's the bigger nation in the region, and to keep an equilibrium in the region, it is very important that India shows us, their maturity and the strategic leadership that they should provide, and we expect that from them. And sometimes, as a nation, we have to go to other nations to get our, needs fulfilled sometimes, and even wants, to fulfill. In that capacity, we will go to China, we go to Middle East. I mean, there are many countries that help Maldives. It's not only China. We get aid from China, we get aid from Middle East, but that is that's a fact of life. It's not just one country we depend on these things. So at this juncture, I would not say that we are very China-centric, and all that. No, we are not. The Maldivians are not. We are not. And I mean, in the past, you see, if this government goes too much on that, I think the Maldivian people will say that, okay, you are going too far now. We have to have our neighbors, to keep them happy as well. And then it's very important for the region that the security of all these nations, the SAARC countries, has to be there, has to be guaranteed by each other. That has to be there. So we may at times go to other countries for help, but that should not be seen as a very centric thing, So I think that should be understood. I think India understands that. I think Indian Foreign Secretary understands that very clearly. That's what I feel, at this juncture. And Maldives is a developing country, and it needs a lot of infrastructure. For the last 15 years, we have been doing that. So for that, we will also be, strategic, and we will be also think of our own security as well, and by doing that. So when we are doing that, we will not want to depend on one country to do that. So it could be China, it could be Middle East, it could be India. So likewise, it is going that way, not very much as a foreign policy that we will choose China as our big brother and we depend on them and all that. No, I don't think so. I don't think that is the idea of the president. No, I don't think so.
Well, I really hope that your president listens to what you have to say and actually behaves and acts like one, in the sense that, Maldives is an independent country. It is free to, like any other country, like India would deal with, let's say India would deal with China also, even though it is involved in a conflict with China, it will also deal with the US. It also deals with Russia. So Maldives has every right of it. But I hope that maybe a year and a half or 2 years down the lane, we're not discussing, let's say, the debt trap that Maldives has got into it. So while Maldives is absolutely free, I hope it also deals with the situation in a more mature way. And I do really hope that India...
We value our democracy, Definitely.
Yes.
The people of this country value. See, I mean, nobody was given 2 terms in this country.
That's true.
So
that's true. Nobody has been given 2 terms. Yes.
This is a democracy. So we will support democracies, all over the world. So that's our stance. Even when we choose.
Well, even when you choose, please continue, sir. Even when you choose.
I mean, any country for our aid and for the needs, that is our, for us to decide when and who we will ask, because
absolutely
and that is the principal, base of democracy. It's our free will to choose. Okay, we understand the geopolitics and the regional politics. We have to be careful of that. I think everybody understands that, what's happening in the region and what is important in the region and what's important for the region as well. So that is there. But Asia needs to be developed, For that, India would take the necessary steps they would for the security of that country, India. We would do the same for the security and prosperity of our country. But that doesn't mean we will sacrifice our neighborly relation, our security, That's it. I think.
Well, I get you on that. As I said, I hope your president is listening to your conversation. He actually should have a conversation with you about how to go ahead with the whole India-China thing. But thank you so much for joining here in this discussion on such a short notice. Thank you so much, General Bhatia, for joining in too and giving your deep insights into where this whole relationship headed and the role that China plays. Captain DK Sharma has sadly had got dropped because of bad network on his side. And thank you so much, Pia, for tracking Maldives very closely and for bringing us your insights. Thank you so much for this panel of guests, and I hope, viewers, that you were able to get a sense of what is really happening in the India-Maldives ties, where what is the actual military presence that the Maldives keeps talking about, and where is this headed. So thank you so much for watching this show. Thank you all.